Welcome to Divorce Mortgage Strategies, brought to you by the Divorce Lending Association, where clarity meets strategy in the financial side of divorce. Whether you're a family law professional, a financial expert, or someone navigating the complexities of divorce yourself, this podcast is your go-to resource for trusted insight into how real property and mortgage financing intersect with divorce outcomes. We don't just talk about houses. We talk about strategic solutions that protect futures. Let's dive in. Today, we welcome host, certified divorce lending professional, Theresa Jones, and her guest mediation specialist, Tamara Gauldin.
And welcome back, everybody, to our next episode of the Divorce Lending Association. I'm your guest host, Theresa Jones, a licensed CDLP, and today I have with me Tamara Gauldin, who is a mediation specialist. Tamara, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Teresa. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Well, let's just jump right on in. First of all, do you want to do a brief explanation of the difference between mediation and litigation? Or,
Absolutely. The interesting thing with mediation versus litigation is frankly control. If I had to come up with one word, I'd say control. Parties are able to control the outcome of a mediation to something that everybody can live with, something that's manageable. Someone may not get 100% of what they want, but they'll get enough to be able to live with it and a decision that they made. So they also get the ownership of it. Whereas if a litigation goes to trial or to arbitration, then you have either a judge, jury, or an arbitrator make the final decision. And who knows what can happen? You can definitely make some predictions, but you never know what's going to happen. And a lot of times people distinguish litigation and mediation. A litigated matter can, in fact, go through mediation. So a lot of my mediations are cases that are currently in litigation, meaning that something has been filed with the court. I mean, in fact, most 98% of them are matters that have already been filed with the court and may be in litigation, but at some point before the judge and or the jury makes a decision, you can come to mediation and maybe sort through everything or sort through something. So that's the one of the big differences, if you will.
so basically, you might be in litigation and know that you've got to go before the judge, but maybe you can hammer out some of the details beforehand.
Absolutely. And sometimes keep in mind, I said 98%. Some of my clients come to me before litigation, and some of them come before they even get an attorney. And a lot of times you hear, well, why is that? A lot of times people may know just enough. They tend to get along with the person on the other side, but they need somebody kind of in the middle to work it out. It could be like a partnership where people have worked together for years. They like each other. They might even love each other, but they really want to do what they perceive as fair. And so sometimes I hop in. So it doesn't have to be contentious. And a lot of times it's not. It's just having someone in the middle to kind of help the parties along to make their own decision in the end.
That makes perfect sense. So let me ask you then, what does a typical mediated divorce look like in today's environment? Especially,
Go
I'm sorry,
ahead.
I was just going
Go
to say,
ahead.
especially with significant assets like a marital home.
Yeah, so I don't know that the evolution of that has changed. A lot of it is just the preference. For me, I do things based on the preference of the parties. Some mediators do things based on what they think is best given their experience or what have you. What I've learned from me, I tend to cater to, whatever the parties want, that's how I do it. But typically, there instead of one day they can be 2 days of mediations, or it could be a full week depending on what it is. But when it comes to the properties, that's usually children and how to split the time and assets. Those are the biggest things that you use a mediator for, especially when we're talking about divorce or family type mediations. And a lot of people say, why? Well, those things are really hard to quantify for folks. A lot of times the value that we put on a home may leave out the sentimental value. So if I were to talk to you about your assets, Theresa, I would factor in the fact that, you grew up in that house. Your daughter was married in that backyard. So those can be the hard things with those emotional ties, and that, it's really hard to discuss when you already have a very stressful environment. But the things that we break down from beginning to end, it's a schedule. I mean, let's start with the house. Okay, let's start with the cars. Which cars are paid for? Which cars did you acquire during your marriage? And then a lot of the tricky part, especially with today's climate, as you know, is okay, we have a house that's paid for right now. I may not work. What do I do? Or the bigger issue we're running to, especially if you're Middle Tennessee, is we have this house that's paid for. It might be cheaper for us to continue to live together in this house and be divorced, because it's kind of like, okay, we sell the house. Well, how can I afford where to live? So a lot of it comes down to figuring out, like, okay, how can we sell this, whatever it is, and figure out a way to have a very, have a similar life to what we had when we were together. The other thing that's a biggie in marital type mediations are with just benefits. And I'm saying benefits such as like 401k plans, IRAs, also those things that have been inherited, like inheritances, things that have come that we've both benefited from while we were married. So those tend to be the really, really difficult ones. A lot of the stuff that people had before they were married, that's a lot easier to deal with, of course. But to me, housing and vehicles, especially if they're not, well, frankly, I think it's probably harder if they're paid for when it's a house. Sometimes when the house still has a mortgage on it, somebody can take over the mortgage. They may give up something else so you can usually play with those a little differently, but those, frankly, are the biggies.
That's fair. And yes, that is something that I helped mitigate, just to give some facts and numbers and what can be done in the future.
Yeah. And another thing, Theresa, is sometimes, and this is more so when people aren't represented by an attorney, we have to work through who's going to pay me, right? Because a lot of times in lawsuits, you may not have to pay until it's finalized, until the divorce is finalized, or you may not have to pay if it's a tort matter until the case is over. So a lot of times that upfront money is something that parties have to agree with. It's like, okay, is one person working and one person not? Well, do you agree? So it starts at the beginning, like getting some small agreements. Like the first big small agreement is, can we agree to mediate? All right. Yes or no? Can both parties agree to mediate? Then the next one is, can we be in the same room? Okay. Can we be in the same room at this point and maybe not at this point? So I try to get a bunch of small agreements, of small head nodding, to where people can get familiar and comfortable with saying, okay, I can do that, or okay, this will work. So people can slowly get a whole bunch of small victories kind of piled up before we get into the nitty gritty. So one person doesn't feel like they're saying yes to everything and someone else said no. It's like, no, 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 no. You guys can agree because you agreed to mediate. And that was a huge agreement, right? Right. So that's another thing.
It's like the path you take them down with that. That's cool. So in preparing to come to mediation, how important is it for clients to have their financial information organized and ready before they walk
Man,
into mediation?
if there is one thing, once you it's once people have really come to grips with this divorce is happening, right? Once they've actually come to grips with that, I'd say the next thing the clients need to come to grips with is the fact that I can't have it all. Okay. In order to come to grips with the fact that you can't have it all, you need to know what you have. Okay. What is it all? So some of us, and I use my parents in every example, and anytime I speak, so I should probably pay them something. But if I'm thinking about my parents, my mom handles all the bills. She handles all things money. And my mom's now retired and my dad's not retired. So as my dad says, he hasn't seen a paycheck in, they've been married for about 40 years. So he hasn't seen a paycheck in 40 years. So he doesn't, he's so far removed from that stuff, right? So what would he have to do? To figure out exactly how much do you make? And it sounds kind of silly, but when you have people, partners who have been together so long and you handle this and I handle that, it's amazing how that trust just builds. And so you really may not know what you have. So my instruction, an ideal first start to a mediation is before you get to me, is know what all looks like. Okay. And then I'm going to walk you through some things to make sure, frankly, that you don't leave some of those things out. So I think the difference between a 1 day versus 2 day versus 3 day mediation, similar folks with the similar assets, if you come in with your finances in order and you know at least what all looks like, you don't have to know how to do it. You don't have to know the interest rates. You don't have to know any of that. But if you know what all looks like and you have some idea as what is it going to take for you to live the life that you want after the divorce, that could be the difference of 1 day versus 2 days when you have someone with the two clients with the exact same assets. It's a big difference. And frankly, we can't get to a yes until everybody's heads are wrapped around the same amount and the same value anyway. So, it's going to have to happen. It's much easier if you deal with that before you go through the stages of emotion or the stages of grief before the mediation. Just start that process because it is hard, and it's really hard, outside of your safe place, like your house or what have you, to actually process that out loud is very difficult when a time clock is ticking and you're paying somebody, right? So it's very, very vital for a sustainable mediation. So,
And I
or
will
sustainable
say,
result.
yeah, I will say in all of my 20 plus years in banking and then in mortgage and now this, the majority of people who've been married that long, it seems to be that one really is the one who handles all the finances and knows where all the assets are. And a lot of times the other is not only clueless about it, but doesn't know where to start when it comes to looking for it, and helps to have somebody else there say, well, have you looked at this? Have you
Yep.
checked here? So
Yeah.
it can
And
be really
sometimes,
hard.
knowing is not always sometimes just knowing what all looks like what all your assets like, that's the first step. The second step is understanding, okay, now that I know, understanding what a dollar amount that you have to do X, Y, and Z. It's kind of like going house hunting with the pre-approval letter, right?
Right.
That's kind of the analogy that comes to mind. You come to that mediation with a pre-approval letter, understanding, which is just an analogy to just understand how much you need to live with, how much you can afford.
So, on that note, what are some of the most common sticking points you see around property division? And how do you help clients, couples move past that?
Affordability. I mean, the first off, I guess the first thing is, I hate to use this word, but this is the word that comes to mind, is greed can be huge sometimes. Unrealistic greed can be one thing. What people feel that fairness is another thing. And then just this climate, affordability is probably the other thing. It's that simple as that. But all of those things, I think, can be better understood. As I always explain, I am a 20 plus year attorney, right? I've been a part of thousands of mediations. That's been my life as an attorney. So I know what my role is as a neutral in this. What my role is not is a financial advisor, a financial planner, a divorce lender. Those are not my roles. That is not a good service for me to provide you, right? Because I know where I am the expert and where others. So I am very clear, especially if neither party is represented by an attorney. My conversation is a little different in that, okay, I like where these numbers are going with you all. Now, your homework is to go talk to your financial advisor, go talk to a CPA, go talk to a divorce lender to really, to really work through those things, because my best service is not, I don't give financial advice. I don't give really advice, even legal advice in a mediation, right? That's not the role of a mediator. So frankly, when it comes to those things, but those are the sticking points regardless, I usually make sure that I send them to a different place to find those types of services. And if they're represented by an attorney, a lot of times that part is already worked out. And if it's not, the attorney has a relationship with X, Y, and Z, or will send them kind of without giving them any advice, kind of like go to your whoever prepares your taxes or a CPA or a divorce lender. They'll usually do that.
Okay, so then what is the most frequent mistake you see the couples make in mediation?
I'd say mistake is I don't know if it's a mistake, but I think I always use this analogy. I think quitting 5 minutes before your blessing, like not knowing what to do when things get hard. That to me is, if we've worked on this for 7 hours, it gets harder as the day goes on. It doesn't get easier as the day goes on. And so stopping and quitting when things get hard, to me, or if that's the biggest mistake, if you will. Like, okay, well, if you think you're going to keep the house, I'll see you in court. If you think that I'm going to keep this car note and keep that up and pay for the car for you for the next 5 years, I'll see you in court. So really, I'd say the lack of education, not in a demeaning way, but the lack of education around what this money means. What does a fixed rate mean? What does a fluctuating rate mean? Understanding, like, what does 401k mean, and should it go into an IRA? What is an IRA? And what does that mean? And what does money that is going to come to you in the future, what does that mean? Like, what does an annuity mean? Understanding the value of assets, to me, is a huge, not understanding them or giving up on the mediation before you understand those things is a huge, huge, I wouldn't say mistake. It's just the lack of awareness or knowledge, because sometimes I can see, yeah, you want this car today, but this percentage, this money in an IRA is going to be worth way more than a car, baby. It's that type of stuff that I'm the mediator. I'll let you come to your own decision. If it's sustainable, fine. If it's not sustainable, then we're probably going to have to push it to another day or something like that. But I'd say it still goes back to that whole sticking points. I think that question is kind of the same with that sticking points. It's
Mm,
usually the same,
that
same
makes
trends.
sense. Yeah, and I'm right. I don't know if I would be a real good mediator in general, because I would be like, no, are you hearing what I'm telling you? This is not in your best interest.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's amazing though. People will, if they work on it, if they come with a mindset of resolution and a mindset of, okay, I'm just open. If you can come open to various ideas and scenarios, it's amazing how many people you don't need my input anyway, right? You don't. People will 9.9 times out of 10, people know what's best for them. They really do when they're educated and aware.
So let me ask you then, what is the most rewarding part of being a mediator for you?
I think the clients at the end, to see the evolution, like I think of just it's amazing because we rarely get these things. And I think we rarely get these things because we rarely do these things. But when a client takes the time and sends a note and says, like I had a man say the other day, like, as soon as you started speaking about this matter, my anxiety went down. And what that meant is, what the way I interpret it is, my attorney's great. My wife is here with me. She's great. but I still don't know how this is going to play out because there's somebody in another room that's making me really, really nervous. I got an email from someone that said, and it was someone that I had to say no to because there's certain things that I know that I'm not good at. I'm not the best mediator for. So I'd actually referred this lady to another mediator, given the things that she said were very important to her. And those were things that I couldn't naturally provide. And so her email said, "Thanks for hearing me. You really understood my wants, and I appreciate you directing me to the right person in understanding what was important to me." Like, it was the best note that I've received to date. And it's not even, it was no business for me. Like, I got nothing out of it except for that feeling of, oh, wow, thanks. That made me feel good. So at the end of the day, I feel really good if none of my mediations fall through. If they are sustainable and I haven't heard anything back, or if I don't hear, that's not, you're not being fair. If I don't hear that throughout the course of a day or a week, I know that something's really, because it's so easy when we feel backed up against the wall, or when we have a lot of stress and it's so easy to lash out at anybody. So if I can get away with people not saying, "You're just taking their side," or "You're not being fair," I know that it's been a good day.
Yeah, yeah. And it's true, especially when you're talking divorce, because it's so highly emotional and there's so much emotion tied up to all of the assets that you're trying to divide. And
Absolutely.
they are quick to get very upset sometimes, and that can
Yep.
be hard. So, if someone was wanting to learn more about mediation or find a qualified mediator, what resources would you recommend they use to help track somebody down?
Yeah, I'd say for me and my purposes, you can go to alliancemediationllc.com. It's a website. You can learn definitely more about me, or you can email me at tamara@alliancemediationllc.com, or admin@alliancemediationllc.com. Another place you can go to is the administrative offices of the court's website. They have mediators that are listed. And I will say to most folks, does a mediator have to be an attorney? No, they don't have to be. And there's some good mediators that aren't attorneys. But at least the going trend in Tennessee is a lot of mediators are attorneys. And I'll let other people decide the pros and cons of that. But I will say one thing to look for is our listed Rule 31 mediators. Those are mediators that have had to go through some sort of training and a requirement for continuing training to be a Rule 31 listed mediator. So as I say to folks, I'm not the best mediator for everyone or every scenario and situation, but there are plenty of really good mediators out there, and there's enough for all of us. So find someone that you're comfortable with, you know, find someone that, or someone that's recommended. Recommendations are always good. But again, alliancemediationllc.com, and you can learn a lot about mediation. There's a frequently asked questions sections, and you can learn about mediation there also.
Well, that's fantastic. I really appreciate you coming and taking some time to spend with us today and help us all learn more about mediation in general and all the pitfalls and all of the good sides and how it can help avoid the courtroom and give you more control over everything.
Absolutely. And, not every matter is for mediation. That's just how it is. But, I would definitely start there because there's also economic benefits that can come from mediation versus going through a full out trial. So I appreciate your interest in the subject and allow me I'm always open to educate people about mediation and the benefits of it. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed it. And
All right.
hopefully we'll be able to do this again soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Theresa.
Thank you.
All right.
Mm,
Thanks for joining us on Divorce Mortgage Strategies, powered by the Divorce Lending Association. If today's conversation brought you clarity, insight, or inspiration, we encourage you to subscribe and share this episode with others in your circle. For more resources, or to connect with a certified divorce lending professional in your area, visit divorcelendingassociation.com. And be sure to download the free Divorce Strategy Hub mobile app for tools, education, and support designed to guide you through the financial side of divorce. Until next time, remember, in divorce, the mortgage isn't the problem, it's the plan.